have Zerman as my first guest for season 5 of Living the Life podcast. I'm super excited. And this season, my promise is I'm going to do less of the talking and kind of let my guests share some of the insight with you on, first of all, why I decided they would be a great guest for this podcast. First of all, we just got to have some housekeeping rules. If you're new to the podcast, it is a productivity podcast. If my name, Waneka Tessie, sounds familiar, you're probably hopped up on the other podcast that's Natural Bodybuilding Tips. So don't be alarmed, it's the same person, just different topics. So with that, I am going to let Zerman take on the wheel. And I always like to do this question where I want my guests to talk to us about who they are, what fun things they like to do, and just a little background so that we can get familiar with who Waneka Tessie is speaking with today. You have the mic, sir.
All right, Tessie. Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, really. Who am I? Well, I'm a guy that grew up on a farm in Northwest Iowa. I think whenever anybody asks you that, at least me, I go back to who I am fundamentally. And fundamentally, I will always be a farm boy that grew up in hog houses more than office buildings. And that's sort of the fundamental identity I guess I have. And yeah, then I went to college, went to law school, graduated from Georgetown in 1990. I got married like everybody in my late 20s, had a couple of kids, got divorced, and then went through, my children were very young when I got divorced. My daughter was only 1 and my son was 3. And so for most of their childhood, I was a divorced dad. I co-parented with their mom. But that creates certain challenges, especially for somebody who's in a career like being a lawyer, where you're expected to work, crazy hours. And yeah, so did that for like 20 some years. And now my kids are gone and I'm an empty nester. And I looked around and I decided, well, now what am I going to do? And I started doing storytelling and TikToks. And my TikTok channel has 140 some thousand followers, which shocks me more than it shocks. I mean, I know that that's not 1 million or 2 million or whatever like the big content producers have, but I don't do anything but talk about life lessons and that sort of thing. But it resonates with people, I guess, and I'm surprised that I have as many followers as I do. But I always am grateful for them.
First, I'm not going to undermine what you just said. I'm going to amplify it. If you haven't seen his video, you have to see it. I think he does himself a great disservice by saying you don't know how you got all these people to. First, he's a great storyteller. You can see that right off the bat. And secondly, his ability to be open about his stories in a way that lets people like myself, I'm Nigerian origin. I live in the middle of the desert, and his story that you would not correlate with two of the same types of people as we are, really stuck a chord to me. So first of all, I think he's belittling all the things that he does on TikTok. That's my opinion. But hey, I will let my audience watch your videos and they can give me feedback. But you saying about your upbringing in Iowa, I want to ask, did you want to be a lawyer, or did you see that being a lawyer was something that would make sense for someone like you? I think a lot of your videos you put as what I should do, what sounds right. So I'm curious, was that a career that you chose?
Well, my mom was a school teacher, and I grew up in a family that respected education a lot, and me and all of my siblings are very well educated because that was a priority to my family. My dad was a farmer, is a farmer. I don't know if you ever retire from being a farmer. So it's not like I naturally grew up in a circumstance where I became a lawyer. I didn't know any lawyers growing up. And I really had no plans for doing that when I went to college. I thought I'd go to college. I didn't know how long I'd be in college. I didn't necessarily think I'd even graduate from college, but I went to Augustana College in Sioux Falls, and a couple of professors there in the political science department recognized something in me. And it's a small college, so they were able to kind of take me aside, and they helped me become a writer. I went to a very small high school in Northwest Iowa. We had like 25 people in my class. I think the whole school had like 70 people in it in my high school, all 4 grades. And we just didn't get really good education when it came to writing, especially analytical writing. And luckily I went to Augustana, and yeah, these 2 professors kind of took me under their wing. And I then realized, and they're both dead now, so it kind of chokes me up. Because of them, I realized that I had a lot more potential than what I believed I had shoveling hog shit out of, barns when I was a boy. And I went on to Georgetown. I graduated in the top 10% of Georgetown, and all of that was not natural at all. It was because people invested time in me, and I will always be grateful for that.
Okay. I love your voice, and I love how open you are about those things, because I think we need that, not just in the professional world. There's a balance, you don't want to be too of that, but also in your personal life. Once you get to a point where you realize what's important, I think those emotions are very necessary. And I appreciate it.
Well, what you said to start out the podcast, I kind of want to go back to that about you being from Nigeria and me being from Iowa, and we still have this connection.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, when I started to do TikToks, I did it because I was so upset by January 6th. And I felt like, you sat for 4 years and watched the Trump administration, and I sat quietly thinking that, once everybody sees what a buffoon he is, and we have another election, he'll be voted out, and hopefully we'll go back to normal. And then January 6th happens. And I worked in the Senate back in the 80s. And I, as a young 20-something-year-old kid going down to the Senate floor, to me, that was like going to the holiest of holy places. I mean, I felt like such responsibility just walking into that chamber. And I was just an intern, delivering stuff to Senator Tom Harkin in Iowa. And I couldn't actually go into the chamber. I would go into this like little room off to the side if I had to deliver something. But I could go up into the gallery and stuff. But to me, that's like everybody who died for this country in every war. The ideals that are debated in that chamber, the policies, the principles, they're enshrined there. I mean, and to do what they did on January 6th, just as a matter of respect, dangling off of balconies and sitting in the speaker's chair or the majority leader's chair, and desecrating the place, breaking windows, all of that. I just was very troubled by that. And so actually my first few months on TikTok were more political. And I was very much kind of waging war against the MAGA crowd in my way. I mean, I wasn't super confrontational, but I was trying to just point out how ridiculous some of the ideas were. And of course, the way the algorithm is written, all it does is it channels people into your bubble that agree with you. You get 2 people when you do that. You get all the people that agree with you, and you get all the people that want to unalive you. And there's nothing in between. And so, you have all these people that are praising you, and then you got all of these people that are cursing and screaming and yelling. And you know what? I just was looking at my comments after every video, and again, I'm in Minneapolis, so George Floyd was a big thing that happened shortly after I started doing TikTok during COVID, and so that was all happening around me. So a lot of my early material was on racism, and you can't see me as the podcast, but I'm the whitest white man on the planet, and I was very troubled by that as well. And anyway, just seeing how I wasn't contributing to any unity. I wasn't contributing to people coming together. Like, I wasn't going to convince anybody in the MAGA crowd that they were wrong. And I wasn't going to get anybody in the liberal side of the spectrum to think, why are these people feeling that way? There are ways. Trump is a symptom of a bigger issue. And I grew up on that farm in Iowa where Trump is super popular in the area where I grew up. I understand why they feel that way. I think that they're following a false prophet, and a lot of them loved Obama. A lot of the people who voted for Obama also voted for Trump, and it's because they feel like the system, the regular politicians have left them outside of the system. And anyway, I just got tired of contributing to that divide, and I tried to refocus my content on things that brought people together.
Yeah.
And that was, my first really viral, the one that got multiple millions, was a video on depression. And it was just a very honest video about my form of depression. And it clearly resonated with a lot of people. That really surprised me. I mean, it was very touching. And you go through and you read all those comments, and people wrote songs about that video. People invested it led to other creative efforts, and so many stitched videos and duets and people talking about their own experience. And to this day, it probably gets thousands of views every day. And I did other videos about career paths and speaking to Gen Z people about the discouragement that they feel in the job market and the housing market and with student loans and all that. Because my kids are Gen Z, and I feel as though I have some insight into that, even though it's not me personally. But if you're a parent, something happening to your kids happens to you as well. So in a way. So when I started doing that material, that's when my account really, I went from like 30,000 up to 140,000. And that makes me, then it's like, this is why I'm on TikTok. This is what I wanted to do. I wanted people to see their commonality, not to see their differences. And it's like, yeah, we all struggle with our mental health. We all struggle as parents. We all struggle making money. We all struggle with career decisions and education decisions. We all struggle with dating, and we all struggle in relationships. And it's just like, there's so much more that we have in common than we have that separates us. And we should be celebrating that on social media, but that's not what social media rewards. And it's hard doing this kind of material and getting videos that perform well. I mean, I do have videos that have performed well, but a lot of my videos are, less than 5,000 views, which that's fine. It's fine. I don't do this. I'm not making any money off of it, but I know that you're just totally beholden to TikTok. And so whatever TikTok wants to push to an audience, they will. And whatever you could produce the greatest video on the planet. If TikTok doesn't want it to go out, it'll go to about 10 people, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
oh, you know what I do like? So, for example, the idea of productivity to me means that we're getting somewhere, right? Anytime I think of productivity, it's like we're getting from point A to point B, whatever that marker you have set to be productive. That's what I see as productivity. So, going back to your conversation about let's find what makes us the same versus what separates us, I feel that's a very productive way to guide humanity into the next chapter. And if we are set on, okay, this is right, and let's stick to that, and this person is wrong, let's stick to that. The only thing I have an issue with that is that there's not an educational benefit to either side. And then we continue this battle. And when you look at history, I just look at it as two sides that didn't want to say, hey, we're right or we're wrong. It's got to be ours. So I appreciate you bringing that point. I'm also very curious about some of the endeavors that you have done, like being a lawyer. That is a very difficult realm to be in. I don't care how successful you are in it. It's a very difficult arena. I'm curious, I know you've hinted on your backstory. How did you manage to balance some of that workload, being first a husband, then being a father, and a father that's a lawyer? How does that look like in your world?
Well, I mean, I think again, a lot of my videos deal with mental health, and I think so. This isn't the question you asked, but it all goes back to it's all joined together in one way or another. And uh, people, a lot of my videos on mental health are like, oh, the first thing I always say is, I'm not a professional counselor, I'm a lawyer, I'm not a therapist. Go get professional therapy. That's always my primary advice. Don't get your therapy from me or anybody else on TikTok. But then people will always write, oh, well, I've been to counseling, it doesn't work. And I've done videos on this topic. Counseling, if you just sit and talk about yourself, of course that's not going to work. The point of counseling, and if you have a good counselor, they should make this clear to you. The point of counseling is to identify areas that you need to change about yourself. It's not about identifying ways in which your spouse is a terrible spouse. It's not about identifying ways in which your job sucks. It's not about I mean, those may be problems in your life, but those are not situations you can impact. The person you can impact is you. And so you need to figure out how to change your life. If things are really making you upset, depressed, sad, you need to make changes. And if you don't have the courage to make those changes, or you don't have help in identifying what changes will be productive and what changes are counterproductive, you're going to sit in this quagmire forever. And I got divorced twice, and it was only after my second divorce that I finally, summoned the courage and got off my butt and said, I got to change. It's me. I'm the problem. And I think if everybody's honest about going through divorces, we all contribute. There's, even in the worst marriages where there's infidelity and financial distrust and all that, both parties play a role in the disintegration of the relationship or the unhealthy, toxic nature of the relationship. And you need to identify that. And really the only effective way that you can do, we're not objective. This is, as a lawyer, clients are not objective enough to identify their own problems, their own strengths and weaknesses of their claims. And likewise, you're not objective enough to identify your own strengths and weaknesses psychologically, your own baggage from your past, your own, trauma that you've experienced. It's really helpful to have a counselor that is objective and can guide you through that process. But that's just part of the process. It's still, nobody can make changes that you need to make to be a happier and more fulfilled person. And so when I was going through my divorces, I mean, one of the things that I identified that I was not happy about, and my depression preceded both my marriages, but I'm a major depressive disorder is a diagnosis, which means I'm just always depressed. It doesn't go away. It's not episodic depression, but that was one issue. I had to learn to manage it. And one of the things that was just really perpetually bringing me down was my job, working for big law firms. And so one of the early decisions I made was to quit practicing in a big law firm, which was a huge financial hit. But it had two benefits. Number one, it got me out of a work environment that I just was not wired to deal with. I wasn't wired to deal with a big law firm. And number two, it enabled me to spend more time with my kids and to have a more flexible work schedule. So I mean, to this day, financially, it was a terrible decision. But to this day, I also credit that decision with, number one, still being alive, and number two, having raised two kids that are awesome and successful people. And to me, there's no amount of money that can compensate you for those two things that I gained. So that is how I juggled it. Basically, we all like to say, "Oh, my family comes first," but then, I was confronted with the situations like, does it really come first? If it really comes first, then leave this, multiple six-figure job, leave it, go off into the world, go off on your own, make your own clients, set your own schedule. It's scary, man. It's scary, but if that is your real priority, you will figure out a way to make that work. And I was lucky enough, and fortunate enough in terms of clients and my skills and my specialty as a lawyer, where I was able to make that work. And then my ex-wife, she also, I got to give her credit for, she had the kids as much or more than I had the kids. So she played a big factor in who they turned out to be as well. But primarily, it's my kids. They're great people, very resilient. And I think, I'm really lucky that my kids are the human beings that they are. And, just really, really wonderful people. And so, yeah, they get primary credit for being great people, not my wife, ex-wife and me. But yeah, I had to make changes, and they're not always easy.
I like that. I feel like you've kind of touched on like some of the strategies you made to prioritize not just your work, but also your health, your family. Um, Now that you are on I don't know if there's ever a other side of anything, but it seems like you're in a different pathway. I always tell people we're different people in every stage that we realize what's important. We're always different people. So now that you're this person now, can you share some of the habits that you have taken on to kind of keep your focus to prioritize what's most important to you?
Well, now I'm an empty nester, and I've not been remarried. I mean, my last divorce was in 2009, so I've been single for 14 years. I had a 7-year relationship in that 14-year period, and I've had other relationships. But that when you talk about priorities, it's interesting because as I date now at 58 years old, it's a really big question, because now I've been single for so long, and I'm very much I wouldn't say set in my ways, but I'm very much at peace with who I am. I have my life. I love my life. I have my dog. I have my job. I like to exercise. I don't have the typical lifestyle that most people have, because I quit working a 9-to-5 job when I was 38. That was 20 years ago when I was going through my divorce, the story that I just told you about. So in a lot of ways, I feel like I kind of retired 20 years ago. It's different working for yourself. You don't feel like you're lining the pockets of the people higher up on the pyramid. But it's there's a lot of stress. It's just different stress. Like, I don't get a paycheck every month. I've gone through months or years without making money, and you have to weather that stress. Whereas the stress of working in a institution, you got to deal with all the politics and everything. So I really right now, that's my primary thing, is I am not going to change my life for anybody. I gotta find somebody who is going to mesh with that, has their own peace, and is content, and isn't going to try and, I don't know, isn't going to be, isn't, I mean, I could make more money, but there's a point at which how much money, and it's not like I'm a multi millionaire or anything. It's just that I make enough money, and I could make more money. But then if I make more money, I can't go cycling at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I can't go cross country skiing whenever I want to. I can't take off the weekend and go spend it at the lake. I can't get on a plane and fly somewhere. And to me, so many people wait until they retire to do that, to have that kind of freedom. I've had that freedom for 20 years. I've just done what I want to do, and I've trusted that the money will be here when I need it. And yeah, I'm a lawyer. I understand it's a different world. I'm privileged. People on TikTok tell me that all the time. I'm privileged. I know that. But let me tell you, there's a lot of lawyers that are equally privileged, and they grind their lives up chasing money that they will never live long enough to spend, and not enjoying life at all. And I would say that the priority that I adopted 20 years ago is still my priority. Life must be enjoyed. Like, if you don't like something,
Mm.
change it, really, and don't make excuses for yourself. There's no amount of money that is worth joy, none.
Oh my God.
And but I mean, it does take money to live. I'm not discounting that. You need money to survive, and that I'm not discounting. um I don't think you can be happy living in a ditch, or especially when you've got kids. So there's that line, like, how much do I need to survive
Mhm.
to reach that point where I'm content? And then, once you're at that point, then the decision is, do I need to keep making more money to buy other cars, to buy other houses, to buy other boats, and a lot of people that I'm around, they make enough money to be more than comfortable, but they just can't stop because there's this, I don't know, this societal pressure to just keep consuming.
Yeah.
And I don't see that consumption bringing a lot of joy.
Mm.
And it doesn't bring me joy. And yet, even pushing 60, so many people, their primary topic that they want to talk about is the thing that they just bought, or the thing that they bought that doesn't work right, or the next job or contract they're going to get that's going to make them more money. And we live in a culture that's very much centered around consumption and monetary value that we place on individuals and careers. And I think it's very shallow. It's just not how things should be. But it's your choice to buy into that or not. Most people buy into it, but I mean, I
I,
try not to.
you know what? I'm not gonna lie. I'm going to tell you there are two things I do on my podcast. For the guests that I bring on, I'm very respectful of their time. And secondly, I feel like you're a person I can literally talk to all day. And unfortunately, my podcast is a 30 to 40-minute podcast. But I really loved talking to you. I do want to see if there's a way you can drop how people can look for you on TikTok before we close our marks for this episode.
Well, maybe you'll have to have me on for a second episode. Maybe I can come
I
back later in the season.
You said it. I would love to have you for a second episode. I do
Well,
want
we'll see how it goes.
to.
No, so to find me, Zerman Zane, that's not my real name. Once you become any kind of presence on social media, uh, you get people approaching you about being agents and stuff. I had an agent for a while. The good thing that I got out of it was that they said you got to get a name that's available on every platform, and they basically have these name generators that will generate names that are available on every social media platform. So they got me a few choices. The name that I thought was okay was Zerman Zane. So yeah, just search Zerman, like German, Zane, Zane. You can search that on Instagram or TikTok. Those are the two platforms that I'm on for the most part. And then I have a few videos on YouTube. I need to get more of my videos posted on YouTube, but YouTube, the algorithm, it's funny because TikTok is by far my most successful platform. Instagram, I don't think I even have 1,000 followers on Instagram. And then on YouTube, I have maybe 6. So it's funny how the different algorithms work. But
We
yeah.
gotta keep you humble, sir. We gotta keep you
Yeah.
humble.
Yeah. Well, I mean, podcasts, that's a whole different world. I don't even know. I know it's a very difficult market to get noticed in as well. So,
It
but
is.
I know nothing about that market.
I'm not a quitter, so I just kind of keep going.
All right, Tessie.
I enjoyed this time. Again, this is Zerman Zane. You can find him, like he stated, on TikTok. I'm going to drop his bio, and I will definitely keep track of this one because have been by far one of my most interesting guests because you're so well rounded. You're a person that you don't know what to expect, and you think you know what you're getting in for, and you're so surprised in a great way. So I've appreciated you coming on to the podcast.
Well, like I said, I really appreciate being here. And anytime you want me back, I will be more than happy to come back on.
Well, enjoy your evening and